Hey everyone, and welcome to Mr. E Things. And today we're talking about how to use a dive watch. Now, there's a lot of people that have the assumption that the bezel of the dive watch is used to time how much air you have left on your dive. Now, that is very wrong because there's no way to really time how much air you have left on your dive, because all of our consumption rates is different. That's like there's no timer on your car that says how much fuel you have left. It can tell you an average about how far you can go using the average of your fuel consumption, but there's no like, hey, you got 15 minutes left of fuel. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. I also want to thank Nick Brooker and Dar Hubsha. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but these are two very experienced divers that I consulted on my divers Facebook group, or a divers Facebook group that I'm a part of, and asked for some insight from other divers about how they use their dive bezels. So I'll go ahead and leave their information in the info section below, and let's go ahead and get started. So first, let's introduce our cast here today. We have the Citizen ProMaster Aqualand. Great watch. It has both a elapsed time bezel as well as a depth meter. So that's really great for diving. It is quartz, solar quartz. This is also a solar quartz. This is the Seiko Solar Tuna. Seiko Solar Tuna. It's a really reliable movement, lightweight, very rugged. Has these polymer or maybe plastic bumpers here. The crystal is Hardlex, not sapphire, but hey, it's a really robust watch and it gets the job done. These are all water resistant to 200 meters except for my Seiko Marine Master and the Marathon MSAR. We have the iconic Seiko SKX 007. This was my watch that I started diving with. The bezel is worn out on the rubber retaining gasket in the bezel is gone. It's like broken out, and I need to get that replaced, but the watch works fine, works perfect. None of my watches have ever suffered due to water damage or anything. This is my Seiko Marine Master. I just did a video on her as well as with the strap code bracelet. The Seiko Turtle Patty Edition. I had the crystal swapped out for a sapphire top hat. I don't know. I'm a sucker for domed crystals, as well as I swapped out the bezel insert for a stainless steel one. Yeah, she's a beaut. Okay, and then the last one, the last mechanical one is I have the Marathon MSAR. I also just did a video on this one. This is my latest diver, and I must say, one of my favorites. It's a really small, this is also a Marathon. This is the Marathon GPM, General Purpose Mechanical. This is not a diver, only resistant to 50 meters. So, yeah, she isn't supposed to be here. What are you doing here? No, I'm kidding. I do love this watch, but I wouldn't dive with it. Not because the seals can't handle it, but it's a mechanical wind movement and you're wearing down that stem, the gasket on the stem, or the seal on the stem every time you wind it. So yeah. And this is the Marathon MSAR, a 36 millimeter diver. Nice little diver, very compact, good for my 6.5 inch wrist. Okay, and last but not least, I also wanted to bring by the Casio, I almost said Frogman, the Casio Rangeman, the G-Shock Rangeman. Now, I just want to show on this video that you don't need to have a mechanical dive watch to fulfill your needs for a dive watch. It could be something like a Casio. You pretty much just need something that you can record time with for the most part. Okay, now what are these other things on the table? Now, what we actually have is a dive computer. I don't care how much you love your dive watches. I mean, you can dive recreationally, I guess, with just a mechanical dive watch and a dive table, but I really don't recommend it. I think everyone should have a dive computer, and not just me, all the other dive schools and everything stand by this too, that everyone should be using a dive computer. This is my Aqualung i300C. I think it just means that it has Bluetooth on it. And yeah, so they're just turned on. Okay, now that is an essential item that you dive with. You are never diving without this. As much as we love these you can dive without, but this one you should not be diving without. Another thing that I highly recommend, the last two things are a slate that you can write with underwater. Come on, focus. The main thing that I use for this one, the main thing is I record my start time, finish time, start bar, finish bar, start pressure, finish pressure. Those are for my dive logs. But also you want to record your start time in case if this dies on me, I can know with my mechanical watch how much time has elapsed in my dive. I also use the top layer to draw a map if I know the location that I'm diving, and then the middle layer is for extra notes, communication, something I want to note down about the dive, or maybe something on my equipment I want to check when I'm on the surface. And then the last thing is a compass. Now, not only do you need a compass that is water resistant, but you also need one with a bezel. This bezel is used for marking a bearing. So if I start the dive and I'm going straight ahead, for instance, straight ahead is north, conveniently. Okay, let's make an angle, or let's do this angle so you have a better view of the window here. So if I'm going this direction, I will mark the bezel to north. So north and north match up, and this red line will be my direction, called a lubber line, and I'll follow that direction. And then if I start to deviate, I'll be like, oh, I'm going off of my bearing, and I'll move back so that I'm on that bearing. Okay, that's it. So this is just another compass. I'm thinking I will use this compass for our explanations because this one can kind of lay flat. This one is kind of, all over the place. So what watch should I use? Let's see. I think the Marine Master is probably the clearest. So, I mean, I'll swap it out. Let's see. But let's move these out of the way. And let's start off with the Marine Master. Why not? The most obvious use for the dive watch is to measure elapsed time. Now that is what the name of the bezel is called. You can measure not just your dive, but you can also measure your cooking pasta or rice, or how long I'm gonna measure it takes me to walk down the street. So what happens with this is that you will turn your bezel. You'll turn your bezel so that your pip, which is your 12 o'clock marker, is lined up with the minute hand. And then as the time goes on, you will see the elapsed time. So for right now, it's at the half minute, I guess, marker. It's only been a few seconds. One thing I'll also say was that there are some bezels that are 120 click and some are 60 click. That just is like pretty much how accurately you can get the bezel lined up. So right now it's at the 45 marker, so it'll be at the last 75% between the 2-minute markers. Now it's going to be at the minute marker. So let's start it here. Okay, so there, now it's lined up with the minute hand. An example of a 60 click bezel is like the Citizen. The Citizen has only 60 clicks. So when you line it up, you're only going to get it on the 60 on the minute markers. So you won't have as precise, of a mark. You won't be able to get it directly on the arrow, but it's sufficient. Okay, so you're marking your dives. So what is the purpose of elapsed time? So elapsed time is when you go underwater, you need to know how long you've been underwater, because for recreational divers, as you are breathing in pressurized air underwater, you are building up nitrogen into your bloodstream. Now, I'm not going to go into the science of it now, but the amount of nitrogen that you absorb in your system, correlates to your depth as well as your time underwater. So that's obviously why we use the amount of time we have underwater. We aren't able to calculate our NDL time, which is pretty much how long we'd be underwater before it's too much nitrogen in our system that we cannot go to the surface. That is told to us through our dive computers. That's why it's really necessary. If you don't have a dive computer, you actually have to use a dive table to look it up. Let me grab one of those. Okay, so here I got a dive table. Now the dive table is you will beforehand, if you know the depth of your dive, you will see what depth you're going to go and then how much time you are going to go on that dive, and that will give you a pressure group. And the pressure group will tell you how long that you need to be on the interval, on your surface interval, or if you know your surface interval, you can say, okay, I'll be on the surface for 2 hours, and then after 2 hours, where will I move my pressure group? What will my next pressure group be? Is it confusing? A little bit. It's not that bad, but what I'm trying to tell you, I don't expect you to learn how to use a dive table in this video, but what I expect you to learn is that it's very important to know how long you've been underwater and how long you've been on the surface between the dives. So now you can see that the elapsed time, I had to go look for my dive table. The elapsed time is 5 minutes now. Okay, so what else, other uses do we have for dive watch? We also use our dive watches elapsed time for navigation. When you navigate underwater and you don't have your you aren't looking at a reference point to know, like, okay, hey, I swam past that rock or something like that, you can use your fin kicks. Okay, I swam 10 fin kicks, and then I'll take 10 fin kicks to swim back. You can also do elapsed time, which is what we'll use our watch for, or you can also use air consumption. Okay, I used up half my air to get there, I'll use half my air to get back. These are rough estimates that we use underwater to gauge our distance that we've traveled. So the way that I use my dive watch to navigate underwater is with the elapsed time and direction. So we'll need the slate and we'll need the compass. So let's use this one. And so story time, I was on a dive once, and we were briefing the dive, and then the booklet that they used for the dive, with a gust of wind, I kid you not, the pages just flew out, and they flew out all over the boat, some went into the water. We gathered the pages that we could, but the dive that we were going on, the page was lost. So we were doing this dive. We didn't have an idea where it was going, but it was a casual dive. It was maybe the max depth was 10-12 meters. It was in a little coral reef in a cove, so it wasn't like we were deep in open water, and so I don't think it was reckless to dive this. So what we did was we descended. We got in the water. I marked our start position. I don't have a map. I don't know where we're going or what we're doing. So I just know that I'm using my watch to navigate. How will I get back to the boat? Okay, so we have a start point. That's where we descended. I draw a little boat here. Okay, that's where the boat is. Okay, that's where the boat is. And then our starter mark time. So let's just stop the clock here. Okay, so then I mark my time here. Okay, we're at 0 minutes on the bezel. We descend. I get a bearing, and we are going north. I think we actually did go north, but let's just keep it simple for this demonstration. So we're going north. Okay, that's north. I marked on my bezel on the compass, and we are going north. Okay, so we are going north, we're swimming. I marked the direction that we're heading, and that's it for now. So what do we know now? We've descended, we're going north, and I'm marking my time. Okay, I noticed the dive lead is making a left turn. That's it's a really ugly arrow. I'm sorry. Okay, that is an arrow. You know, when you're underwater, you draw even worse. So we are underwater, and let's say that let's make it easy and just say this point. Let's make it easy, and let's mark it here. So the time that it's elapsed has been 15 minutes. Okay, so we've gone north for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. I'll mark that. Okay, 15 minutes north. We made a direction left. So we've gone left. So now we are going left. North is always pointing north. We have shifted our direction. So now we're going west. Okay, so we're going west now. And then we're swimming. We're swimming. Oh, sorry. We turned west and I reset the bezel. So now I remark it to 0. Okay, then we're swimming. Let's just get some space on here. We're swimming, and the time that elapsed is now 20 at the 20-minute marker. Okay, and the dive lead makes another left turn. Okay, so I know here has been 20 minutes. All right, so we've gone 15 minutes north, we've gone 20 minutes west, and now we're going south. We changed direction. I reset the bezel. Now we are going south. Okay, we're going south, we're swimming. Time is elapsing. 10 minutes, okay? And then we make a left. Again, we're doing a box pattern. So I will mark that, okay, this has been 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Box pattern, I reset the marking. I just knocked the bezel, but anyways, so I reset the marking to 0, okay? And then, so where does this put us? So we went 15 minutes north, 20 minutes west, 10 minutes south. So we are, in general, 5 minutes north of the boat and 20 minutes west of the boat. All right, does that make sense? So yeah, anyways, when we surfaced, we kept on swimming, and I was marking the time. So I always knew in general where the direction of our boat was. So that's just an example of how we use our navigation underwater. Another measure for elapsed time underwater, as pointed out by my friend Nick Brooker, he's a dive instructor, is that he'll also use his dive watch to measure the lesson on his dive, as well as things like slack water. Slack water is where, if you're diving in a tide, is when kind of like between the high and low tide, where the water is calm, where the water isn't being sucked out or the water isn't rushing in. It's right in the middle, so you get more calm water. It's easier to swim, less dangerous. There's a story about a dive that some people actually lost their lives because of they mistimed the slack time, and they got caught in a really strong current. I think it was on the YouTube channel Mr.E. If I can find it, I will link it here. Or I will link it in the description if I can find it. But yeah, so that is important. I personally haven't dived off of a coast or off of done a tide or drift dive or anything like that. But yeah, that is important to know. What do you do if you don't have a you don't have a nice dive watch like this, an analog dive watch, well, don't fret. You can use any watch that's water resistant to 200 meters. Again, I mean, don't take my word for it. You've got to check your seals and everything, and maybe get it pressure tested if you can. But if you had a watch, even a time telling only watch that you trust to bring underwater, you can use this to do your time your dives. You can, well, not this one, but you can use a watch, a regular watch like this Casio arrangement to time your dives. If you have a watch that tells time only and doesn't have a stopwatch on it, you'll have to use something like a slate and mark your start and ending times, and you'll have to do some math yourself to calculate it. Now this is the Casio arrangement. Let's see if I can get the focus here, and you can see the light. Cool. One thing I like about the Casio arrangement is when you're in the time mode here, or just your home page, and you jump in the water, you want to start timing your dive, you just press the start stop button. You don't need to find your stopwatch in your menu. You just press this, and boom, it starts timing your dive, or timing whatever you want it to time. I also chose arrangement as a backup watch for my diving over the square version. I think the square versions look nicer, but I mean, look at these buttons. These buttons are so easy to press with gloves on. Really nice. It also has, it'll still be timing. It also have, if you press this, a compass, which is very handy underwater. I don't like the lag time on it. And there's like a little arrow inside the dial here that will mark your bearing and stuff. Personally, I don't like this compass. I like having a compass as a backup, but personally, I wouldn't really rely on this compass. It is nice if you're going here, you can press this, and it will remember your bearing. So now you know that you're going bearing 32, and when you turn here, you know you're off of your bearing, you get back on. That's cool. Okay, and it also has a barometer. That's not really useful underwater, but it is useful back on the boat. When you measure, when you're out on the boat all day and you get a trend of your barometer readings over the day, you can say, hey, there's a downward turn in pressure. Maybe look out for, we're getting a low pressure system. Another thing we have is altimeter. This one's not really going to be useful. There is a different protocol when diving at altitude. I've only dived in the ocean. The ocean is at ocean level, so I don't really have a use for this, but good to have. And then back to your compass. Okay, and then you hold this. It'll take you back to your home screen, and you press it here again and take you to your world time and your stopwatch. Okay, it's been a minute and 50 seconds I've been blabbering on about this watch. So yeah, this is a alternative that you can use to time your dives. You can stop and reset it and time other stuff underwater. So you don't really need to have a fancy dive watch. Come on. There you go, to dive underwater. This is also why when I do my reviews on dive watches, I always talk about, I really appreciate when a watch has full indexing. On the original PADI version of this watch, it has a red marker up to the 20-minute line, but it's still fully indexed, so that's fine. Actually, I'll talk about that in another video, but I don't like it when watches use red. Dive watches use red, because when you go underwater, the red light spectrum is the first color to get cut. It just turns into a black. So if you had a red and black watch, all that red turns black, so now you just got a black watch. Anyways, it's fine. I'm rambling. Okay, I'm probably gonna cut this out. Okay, so that's great. The last thing that you will use your dive watch for, telling the time. When you're on dive watches, there's a schedule. There's a schedule to wake up, schedule for first meeting, schedule for lunch, schedule for the after party, and maybe schedule for the shore time, as well as when do you gotta meet back to get back on the boat, to get on the dinghy. So yeah, these are all great things to have. Really nice to have a watch that tells the time. So that's it. If you got any questions, if you have other ways that you use your dive watches, let me know down in the comments. Yeah, so one more thing. The last thing, and this is not always shared by everyone, but one reason why I like to bring or have a dive watch and bring my dive watch with me underwater is that I have a lot of watches on the table, but then these watches were used to kind of find my holy grail. One of my holy grails is my Seiko Marine Master. And this is a watch that has been on a lot of dives with me all my life, not just dives, but has been around the world with me as I traveled. And I wear it, day to day, this and my Marathon MSAR. And so part of a watch to me is having the nicks and the scratches, and it's that companionship of like, all the damage, all the scratches that have accumulated on those watches. It's not damage. It's just like it's more like the marking of my life, like that we've gone together through this. And it's not just that this watch has been with me every day, but it's also been with me 30 meters under the water. So that's another reason why I like to have a watch, because it's kind of it's something that I keep with me every day. And I don't want to I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, I wear a watch every day, but then I leave it I leave it on the boat or in my bag when I go underwater. So yeah, that's probably only us watch nerds are gonna feel that way. But anyways, that's another big reason why I like dive watches, is that I don't feel like I need to leave it behind, because it can't go where I'm going. It's gonna follow me there. So thanks, guys. If you have any other stories about your dive watches, leave in the comments below, and I really appreciate it. Let's get these guys together and do a little loom shot for you guys. That's better. Okay. Bye.